Welcome to The Most Important Thing. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Greg, and together we're exploring plastic surgery of the stars. How did Kris Jenner get that facelift looking so good?
You love her.
Well, I mean, we watch a lot of Bravo, and there are a lot of bad plastic surgery
Yeah.
jobs on Bravo. So kudos, Kris Jenner. But no, we are not exploring Kris Jenner. Maybe the Kardashians someday, because together we
Ooh,
are.
extraordinary family.
Yeah.
Interesting. Ding,
Together
ding,
we
ding.
are exploring family leadership and how we build culture at home.
Yes, we are. And today we're going to talk about some of the murkier side of family culture, which I'm actually really excited for. It's not something that comes naturally to me. It's not surprising to most of our listeners that we spent this first 6 months studying family culture, kind of the more shiny aspects of things like joy and compassion and belonging. These really are the things that come naturally to me. I should say the things that I really want to focus on naturally. But if our goal isn't just joy and connection, but it's also wisdom and resilience, then it really makes sense for us to spend some time wading into the shadows, if you will. And for our first topic on this subject, we wanted to discuss envy and Greg's favorite word, shrewdness. Why don't you tell them how you feel about the word shrewdness?
Well, I was like, oh, is this related to a shrew, like in the Taming of the Shrew? And yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
And so a shrewd, we were talking about the movie 10 Things I Hate About You,
Which is based on the Taming of the Shrew.
which is based on the Taming of the Shrew. And I'm like, I don't really remember this movie. Was Julia Child, was she like, what's her
Julia
name?
Stiles.
Julia Stiles.
Julia Child.
I know,
is
the cooker is the baker, whatever. Julia Stiles hasn't been in anything.
Okay, hold on. You're like hurting my heart because 10 Things I Hate About You is my favorite movie of all time. So like, you
This
really
is
need
great.
to remember it.
But so Julia Stiles, first of all, what was the last thing she was in? I don't know. But
I don't know.
secondly, I was like, I don't get it. What was she? She was a shrew in this, so she was like a mole person. Was she? She ugly?
You got it confused with She's All That, right? Which is where they
another
take the not so pretty girl because she's wearing glasses and a hat and take off her hat and glasses, her falafel hat and glasses, and all of a sudden she's Cinderella, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So Taming of the Shrew is about a person who is, I would call it too shrewd, really. Like, so if we think about, I know this is a strange word, shrewdness, but I really think it's an important concept, and that's why I want to talk about it today. So if shrewdness is the goal, then if you're too shrewd, you're cynical,
Yeah.
right? And if you're not shrewd enough, you're super naive or innocent,
Right.
right? And so the goal is balance.
Right. So we're talking about like someone that's really discerning.
Correct. Yes. But discerning, I would say, like in a self-protective way, and in a self-protective, self-enhancing way.
Yeah.
And so Julia Stiles in that movie, really, I think she started, as they often typecast strong feminine characters, right? Is like she started too cynical.
Yeah.
Like she was, but it did have a purpose, right? And so I don't think she's ever going to be her sister Bianca, who is like the ingenue, but over the course of the movie, she went from being super cynical to more balanced.
Got it.
All right, moving on. Okay, so let's just, we got a little sidetracked with the word shrew, which is a weird word. I agree. But I want to talk about why it is important to explore this stuff. And it's because if some of these emotions, like envy, don't get looked at, it becomes something that lives in the shadows and stays in the shadows that our children will be afraid to look at as well. But if we can illuminate it and normalize feelings of envy, for example, then suddenly they lose their power, right? And they become something that I have inside me, you have inside you, and it's normal and a natural part of everyday life, both inside our home and outside of our home, right?
Yeah.
And so Carl Jung has this great quote where he says that understanding the darkness in ourselves helps us to understand the darkness in others. And you had said to me this morning, and I think it's so true, that like, if we only focus on the polished side of family culture, we run the risk of becoming a goody two shoes family, which is so the family that like me, if I had like adopted kids as a single mom, would have totally created, right? So thank God for you.
Yeah, I think our kids need to be a lot more cunning. They also need to spot that in the world.
Yeah.
And I love these ages of these kids, but like they're as they get older, they can't stay this cute. Like right
Right.
now, I throw up a little bit in my mouth when I look at how adorable this family is
Yeah.
because I'm like, man, this is like innocence protected right now.
Yes. Yes.
So I think you're onto something here. When we first got started with this episode and you were telling me about it, I was like, what is going on here? Like, why do we need to talk about shrewdness? Like, what does that have to do with family culture? But I'm starting to get it. And maybe it's because I have a lot of this kind of built in, or I developed this really young.
Hmm.
Happy to get into why.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think a great term for it is street smarts.
Yeah.
And I also think that part of why this doesn't seem like something we need to talk about to you is because this idea of shrewdness or discernment and wisdom and really how it relates to envy is mostly something that lives in feminine shadows, if you will. It's something that I think that men traditionally experience more, whether
Mhm.
it's through male hazing, if you will, or male camaraderie, that it's something that I think is more prevalent in females that is an unwillingness to look at that. But I do hope that we can explore some things that are harder for men to look at as well, like vulnerability or empathy or emotions in general, for example,
Yeah.
as we continue. Okay, so what I want to talk about specifically today is how cultivating a bit of shrewdness in our family can help build resilience and how normalizing envy can help us understand each other better
Yep. So cultivating shrewdness and normalizing what?
and normalizing envy.
Normalizing envy. Right.
Because really, the relationship between the two, sorry if I haven't made it clear yet, but the relationship between the two is that a lot of times, if you lack a willingness to look at envy, as I have throughout my life, you can't cultivate shrewdness because oftentimes, so if shrewdness is really, the ability to see the world as it is, not as how you think it should be or wish it were.
Hmm.
And that's a definition that from Lisa Marchiano, who's my favorite Jungian analyst.
Mine too.
I know. This is a little bit my world. So I do think so when we talk about envy or its cousin jealousy, I think that this is something that comes up a lot with our kids. Like Abigail didn't want to play with me. She only wanted to play with Beatrice, right? Or somebody is bullying me on the playground. I think every one of us, or at least I'll speak for myself and say that, oh, she's just jealous, right? Like that's a very common refrain, I think. So the idea of envy can kind of percolate when it comes to people being mean to our children. But I think that it comes up most often in like a one-on-one kind of reactive way, as opposed to something that we can normalize proactively as a family.
Sure. So a couple things.
Yeah.
One, no one's jealous of a kid named Beatrice or envious. Two, what's the difference between envy and jealousy again?
Sure. So glad you asked. No, because it's something that we talked about with the kids this weekend, right?
Yeah.
And so envy is when you want something that someone else has. And it's usually a one-to-one. So it's usually two people, right? And jealousy is when you are afraid of losing something that you already have to someone else.
Yeah.
So Beatrice is my best friend, and Abigail comes to school, and all of a sudden Beatrice and Abigail are playing a lot. I am jealous of Beatrice and Abigail's relationship because
Right.
it is threatening mine with Beatrice.
Right. And so when somebody says, "Oh, they're just jealous,"
That's usually a terrible use of
is
the
it
word.
usually them meaning, "Oh, they're envious"?
Envious, typically, yes, in the true definition. But there's
Sure.
there's so many things that we say colloquially, right?
No, it's super helpful. And so this all ties back to the idea of shrewdness, because if you can't spot it, then you're really going to be susceptible to it, to like falling into it, if you
Yeah.
will.
And I like this idea of bringing it out of the shadows and normalizing it because it's not that big of a deal once you bring it into the light, right? Everybody, I mean, I see it just this past weekend. We started talking about envy amongst our family. And consistently, now Hunter and Jade are both saying, I'm envious of this. I'm envious of the way that Hunter draws. I'm envious of the way that Jade bike rides, right? And so even within our own family, I'm seeing so quickly how we're able to just normalize these ideas so that we can notice them in ourselves first and then start to notice them in other people.
Cool. Yeah.
And again, not because we want to say like, oh, this friend at school is terrible because she's so envious of me, but because we recognize that this is a normal human emotion.
Yeah.
And we should come to expect it.
And we have this too.
And we have this too, and therefore we should expect it in others.
Exactly.
And that's the idea of shrewdness. Again, the world as it is, not as we wish it were or want it to be.
Right. Well, the idea of shrewdness versus envy. So envy shows up because we have this too, and we should recognize it in others. Shrewdness is more observing things like envy. Right? Because
Correct.
like shrewd, like I should be able to spot when someone's trying to take advantage of me. Also, when somebody is envious of what I have. And the only way to do this is to spot when I have that inside of me about others.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's really about teaching our kids to read the room, not let anyone take advantage of them, and be able to read in between the lines.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I think that this is a really important skill to develop because I can tell you that in my own life, I'm 39 years old now, and I'm still working on this and finding myself feeling unprotected in situations that are really an immaturity in me and a lack of cultivating this discernment where I leave myself unprotected because I feel safer in a space than I should.
Right. No, that makes sense.
I would say that growing up, I had a negative experience with envy. I saw envy modeled in a really harmful way around, trying to keep up with the Joneses and a lot of comparison culture, I would say. And so in my adult life, I've just been really hesitant to even think about the concept of being envious of someone else. And I hate to think about the concept of someone being envious of me. Like you'll always hear me say, I'm just another bozo on the bus. Right. And I think this is consistent. I know so many women that cannot take a compliment.
Yeah.
Right.
Good point.
And it is an unwillingness, in my words, from what I understand it to be, it's an unwillingness to look at this aspect in and of ourselves. And it's like that we could have it and therefore we could be on the receiving end of it, right? When really, if we bring it into the light, I hope that with my friends over time, I can say, I'm envious of your beautiful hair. And that can be okay.
Yes.
And someone else can say, thank you. I just got it deep conditioned or something like that. You know what I mean? So this is something that directly relates to, we could go down this rabbit hole of like so much of the messaging of Disney princess culture when I was young, like in the 80s and 90s. I think that the princesses have gotten better as we've gotten older. But if you think about like Snow White and Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella, they were sweet. They talked to animals. They sang beautifully. They did nothing of substance, right? They were complete ingenues, totally ignorant and innocent of what went on around them, right? Like the biting of the poison apple. Could not be more explicitly living in a fantasy world, right? And I have really kind of pushed hard against having that stuff in our home. Like our kids have not seen those movies because I hate those princesses, right? But I think I hate them because in my adult life, which is so embarrassing to say, I have a tendency to just assume that if I am being my best self, if I am working hard, if I am coming with the best of intentions, I will be received and loved and praised and welcomed with open arms joyfully. And I think that you have been so wonderful in teaching me to not let people in that easily and to not be rude or dismissive, but to really cultivate this idea of shrewdness in greeting people at the door, if you will, instead of letting them all the way in.
For sure. And using that door as a place to interview.
Yes.
Not just a place to greet them and say, come again sometime, but really to understand why they're here, what their motivations are Are they pure? And it's okay if they're not, but knowing is the best superpower of all.
Yes, absolutely. And I think this loss of innocence, if you will, is a really important thing. And it doesn't mean that our children are going to go from 8 to 18 overnight, but it does mean that there's this developmentally appropriate, gradual, layered understanding of envy in others and how perhaps when you have accomplishments in public, you're not going to be received with the warmth and praise that you will
Hmm.
inside of your family,
Yeah.
at your school, or on your soccer team.
Yeah. For a few minutes here, I forgot that we were even talking about family as the beneficiaries of these lessons. And I'm just like working through my head. Okay. This is a place where I show up well. This is a place where, maybe I could use some work. This is, a shadow self that I'm good at looking at. This is one that I'm not so good at looking at. And now I realize, oh, we get to like basically live this while teaching our kids and kind of get a refresher, but also show our kids each step of the way how to raise this awareness, how to like tune their tuning forks to each
Yes,
emotion.
totally. Develop street smarts, right?
Yeah.
I kind of think about this as so if we did a number of episodes on Brene Brown's Wholehearted Parenting Manifesto, this is what can we explore that lives in the shadows? What is like the witch's brew manifesto? And like
Yeah.
how can we take some of these darker things that we still struggle with? And what I'm asking us to do is bring them into the light, talk about them in a family culture context, meaning we spent time during our family meeting this weekend talking about the difference between envy and jealousy. And on Friday, when we have our family meal, I want to ask, and the kids already know I'm going to ask, like, when did you feel envious this week? And where did you need to cultivate a bit of shrewdness?
Yeah.
I'd love to share a story about why I think this is so important and what I'm still struggling with today.
Yeah.
And then maybe we can talk about your experience with
For
envy
sure.
as
That
well.
sounds great.
Okay, cool. So it's still a little bit hard for me to talk about. So I will do my best. But a few years ago, I was serving on a committee and we had spent 2 full days working together as a group. And I was just so proud of the work that we had done together as a group and the way that I had showed up with humility, like continuously asking myself, not if my opinions would be justified, but if they would be effective. And I felt really good and like I belonged in that space. And then out of nowhere, at the end of the 2 days, another committee member completely blindsided me. He started attacking my character in front of everyone. I had said something that he didn't like, and he totally unleashed on me. I was so shocked. I had completely lacked shrewdness and misread the room. And while I think what he did was inappropriate and wrong, ultimately, I blame myself, or I blame myself for not reading the room, for leaving myself exposed and unprotected, thinking that I could speak freely as myself in a safe space. And that was not where I was. And it devastated me, as you know, for days. And the kids saw it as well. And I wanted to figure out how to talk to them about it. And I can tell you now through researching this episode that I have brought that story back up to them because while what he did was completely uncalled for and inappropriate, I could have protected my heart and my energy better because ultimately I should be the one to not let people be unkind to me. And I think that the crux of the story here is that I just let him keep going. I started crying and I just let him continuously attack me instead of pushing back and saying enough is enough and stop. And I think I've really learned from that while I can come with the best of intentions, it is still so important for me to be wise about where I can place my trust.
Yeah.
And if I want to be really, really honest, I can say that, like, because I spend so much of my time with you, I oftentimes give over my power of protection to you. Like, I know that if you had been with me at that committee meeting, you would have stopped it immediately. And so I would have been protected. But this is something that I really need to work on. You know, if life is about climbing my own mountains, I need to learn how to read the room, become more shrewd, and protect myself too.
Yeah, and great awareness and the parallels to why it's important to teach our kids are
Yeah,
tremendous.
incredibly, right? Because I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, Hunter came home and she had a big milestone in math. And no one congratulated her. There was no fanfare. There was even some like, hey, don't you think you're bragging? When she truly just felt proud of herself for all that she had accomplished. And when other children in her class had similar accomplishments, there was cheering, there was fanfare, there was like so much excitement and cheering of that child on, any child in the group that's not her,
Yeah.
really,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so she came home sad, but she also just really came home confused
Yeah.
as to like, why was that the case? And this is like the most salient example I have of how sometimes it's that our successes, Hunter's success, can trigger envy in others.
Sure.
And that is what she experienced. And that is okay. Right.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, she feels envious all the time. She is the youngest kid in her cluster, right? She's constantly envious of this person's drawing talent, that person's ability to do the science experiment better
Yeah.
than her, right? But when it was cast on her, she didn't know how to look at it and was left confused. So
Right.
this was a great opportunity for us to support her in reading the room
Mm-hmm.
and understanding that no, not everybody's going to be happy for you. Actually, you probably shouldn't expect most people to be that happy for you. That's what you get at home.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I consistently am trying to share with the kids is that, like, at home, we do celebrate each other's accomplishments. And we can say, I'm envious of your accomplishment, but as a fellow Neufeld, I'm going to celebrate you too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad but true what our parents told us growing up when they would say, "Oh, they're just jealous," or "Oh, they're just envious." That could be the case, but we were never, at least I was never forced to look at why, right? And understand, oh, this might be what I'm broadcasting to the world.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you should dim
But
your light.
no, not to dim my light, but to expect it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, like, it reminds me, growing up, I was the quote unquote best swimmer of my friends. Right. And so when we would play different games, races or like the little sticks in the pool, etc., like, and I was showy about it, I'll say. Like, I liked to win and I always won. And I can remember one time I did not win and all of the other kids, not just the one kid that won, but all of the other kids gloated. They were thrilled.
Yeah.
And I was so hurt. I was
Hmm.
so hurt. But I hadn't spent any time reflecting on how all of my previous wins might have made those
Right.
people feel, who are
How
my friends,
how
right?
you got to expect that everyone loves a good underdog
Exactly. And
story.
so it's just it's something that we, I think, again, in like concentric circles, it's not like we have to completely pull the rug out from under our children. But these are the great opportunities to not just stop at she's jealous.
Yeah.
First of all, now we know that's the wrong term, but it's also like this person is envious, and aren't you envious of another person or that person's
Yeah.
drawing talent or this, So it's just
It's,
normalizing,
exactly.
but that is the beginning of cultivating shrewdness. That's where it starts. That's
Hmm.
where I wish that I can just say so much of this is reparenting ourselves, right? And so like this is where I wish that I had
Yeah.
more guidance. Not that anybody did anything wrong, just that I didn't
Yeah.
receive that message. And now I'm 39 years old, getting caught flat-footed and feeling devastated and completely unprotected in a room where I should have guarded my energy more closely.
Yeah.
You know?
Of course. But it's not, of course. Like when someone should, like, never again, but you hadn't had that many interactions with that person. Like it's
Right, which is exactly why I shouldn't have assumed I was in a safe space.
there you go.
Right?
There you go.
And I mean, this is just one example because it's an extremely poignant and salient example of me just crumbling into a puddle. I don't want to become bitter on the other side, right? I don't want to become a complete cynic, but I do recognize that a lot of my work to do that I hope to do with the children, and I would say the girls in particular, is losing some of that innocence when it doesn't serve me.
Yeah. And I can help.
Yeah. How can you help? Like, how have you developed such a strong power of discernment and really wisdom in this way?
Well, a lot of mistakes made along the path and a lot of energy channeled at me that I had to learn to dodge and avoid. So growing up as a boy with other friends, there's already a natural competitiveness about who's the strongest, who's the fastest, but then you layer in other nuances about the friendships. So in my case, I was friends with a lot of older kids that lived on my street. Not that much older, 2 to 3 years older. And being the youngest on my street that was looking to play in that group, I was singled out. I had a target on my back. And so I had to learn pretty quickly to understand what was really going on, right? Like if someone was being like overly nice to me,
Yeah.
being like, something's off.
Sure.
Like what's about to happen?
Reading between the lines.
Am I about to get, pushed over? Am I about to get my backpack inverted? Am I about what's about to happen? And
Yes.
so always being a little bit guarded as the younger kid taught me a lot about the world. Specifically, it created what I'll call a forced EQ, where I had to survive or really be embarrassed. Let's say embarrassment was the ultimate low, right? Where being embarrassed and going home crying and things like that, just that was not going to fly for me.
Right. That was a bad outcome.
So I had to learn how to avoid that. And you know how these things go. Like Hunter describes it really well, where she said, "Oh, I don't want so and so to come back to school because no one will be my friend."
Yes, totally.
That's it's low man on the totem pole. So if I'm playing one-on-one with a boy and then another boy comes in who's older than me, all of a sudden it's those two ganging up on me. Mm-hmm. Whereas we had a pleasant, one-on-one time.
Did you hear what she said the other day though? That it was finally her job to be the leader in their little Warriors game that they play.
Oh my God, yes.
And then they changed the rules.
And they changed the rules on her. Of course.
It was her day. She'd waited a whole month.
So she's got to learn,
She's like, why? And I knew that was going to happen, obviously, that the older kids were going to change the rules when it was finally Hunter's turn to be leader. Yeah. Duh.
So, so all of these things create a forced EQ, the ability to better spot exploitation. So when I'm being taken advantage of.
Totally.
Just a heightened threat detection. At any moment I could be pantsed or something like that.
Right.
That's legit. Heightened threat detection. Looking around for that. Not that all of these things are good, but that's
no. As you're talking, I'm trying to think about what's the optimal level for these things. So can you repeat it? So you said heightened threat detection. What was the one before that?
Being able to spot exploitation.
Yeah. So I am terrible at spotting exploitation.
Yeah.
Right. I'm the person that stops when the people with the clipboard in New York City ask you if you want to save dogs. So
I treat everyone like they've got a clipboard in their hand when they're talking to me.
What does that mean? Tell us what you mean by that.
So, my job is to allocate capital, right?
Yes.
I'm a venture capitalist. My job is to invest money in businesses that are worthy, or that have a good shot of going the distance. Now, everyone might believe that they have a good shot of going the distance, but actually, in my experience, a lot of businesses don't have that. They are just putting themselves into a scenario where they believe where they do what they can to raise enough money so that they can figure it out.
Sure.
right? And a lot of entrepreneurs,
Like
because
a fake it till you make it kind of thing.
yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of entrepreneurs have this like, belief comes before ability mindset, which is absolutely true. But like you need to show the slope of the idea, you need to show the slope of the team, the slope of the product, and a lot of times, I'm met with somebody that just has a lot of self-belief but nothing to back it up.
Sure.
And so I've over the years had to, be able to spot what a pitch is versus reality. So there's a lot of that. And then in college, my sophomore year, I joined a fraternity, and I walked into this knowing that there was going to be some significant, I won't call it hazing, but let's find a synonym. Uh, uh, and I had to be extremely shrewd with every situation. Like I remember there was parents' weekend, and I had to wear a shirt and tie after I had dinner with my parents to this fraternity thing, and I was like, I'm wearing a shirt and tie. Like, what is this going to be used against me for?
Mm.
Right? Versus like, oh, like I'm going to something formal and fancy and important. I'm like, what is this going to be used
Yeah.
against me
Not
for?
that. Yeah.
Not that. They had us blindfold ourselves with our ties and get in the back of a van, and they drove us from Wellesley, Massachusetts up to Gloucester, Massachusetts, probably 90 minutes away, and dropped us off near the docks, and took our wallet and our phone and keys, and said, all right, get out, and we'll see you, we'll see you, and just drove off. Right.
Yeah.
And because I just like grew to expect this kind of behavior in life. This is the story that my fraternity brothers love to tell. I saw a cab, hailed it, and said, do you take credit card? He said, yeah. I said, great, because I've got mine memorized. And we all piled into the cab, and we made it home maybe like 10 minutes after the van did. And
That's amazing.
they were so pissed. But like that's what I mean when I'm like, I always need to have a way to get out of a situation.
Yes. Well, that's the street smarts. That's the self protection. Like, I don't have a credit card memorized currently, and now maybe I should.
Yeah.
No, it's true. And I think that, okay, you've given me a lot to think about. And I think that because we've been together for a decade, like, I want to stop relying on you to be, I love how protective you are of our whole family, not just of me, and I am so much the beneficiary of that. But I think that really good growth for me, and to some extent for our girls as well, would be to start becoming less innocent, more self-protective as well, and cultivate some more of those street smarts. I was thinking about experiments that we can continue to do for our family. I'm glad that we talked about the distinction between envy and jealousy and started talking about moments when we're envious of others or jealous of others. Like yesterday, Hunter was watching Jade and me hug and like could not stop touching us and like hitting Jade, and she was jealous in that moment. And we named it and we talked about it. But again, with the intention of normalizing, not to shame, but just to notice that this is something that comes up a lot in a family where we all love each other unconditionally. So imagine what it's like when we step outside the home. And is a goal of mine for all of us to see the world as it is, not as we wish it were or think that it should be.
Yeah.
And I think that I will say myself and Hunter too, we have a tendency to focus on that, what we wish would happen or we think it should be this way, therefore, right? If I continue to put my best intentions forward and be my best self, then the universe should reward me in some way or everyone should love me. And that is just, that's not the case, right? And so talking about normalizing envy and then talking about opportunities where, in situations where we have to cultivate some shrewdness. We have like, what did we do this week to read the room, right? Where did we find ourselves a little bit over our skis and maybe not as protective of our energy as we wish we were? And so I think just the more that we can socialize these conversations, and so that's really the experiment, right? Is like to socialize these conversations. We will do it throughout family meal and family meeting because we now have those workflows. But I would love to challenge the families that are listening to bring the ideas of envy and shrewdness into your family conversations and see what happens.
Absolutely.
All right. So to recap, then, if we are on a mission to cultivate resilient family culture,
Yeah.
right? It's not just about these shiny attributes and values like compassion and courage and joy and belonging.
Yeah.
It's also about the murkier stuff, the stuff that we don't necessarily always want to look at, but that deserves to be brought into the light, right? I think that is truly how we build a family culture that is anti fragile, if you will, and really provides this full spectrum strength. And when we cultivate shrewdness and normalize envy, I think that we are really protecting against this naivete that as our children get older and as we all engage in the world more fully individually, it's important to foster.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
as
think
you said, we don't want to be just a goody two shoes family anymore.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Some street smarts too. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Cool.
We'll
Well,
start out with like the Jets and the Sharks and then
okay.
work from there.
Love you, Goosey.
Love you, Goosey.
Hey guys, if you're still here, you're definitely our kind of person. Thanks for spending this time with us on the most important thing. If this episode resonated with you, we'd love for you to follow us wherever you get your podcasts and share it with someone else building family culture on purpose.